Good morning again. I love the reading. Today we're going to be looking at, and for this whole month actually, let me back that out. This year, as a movement, we are considering the idea of living our values in the world. What are our values and how do we live them effectively in the world? And so this month we're looking at the idea of the spirituality of diversity and inclusion. And how does that work? And one of the things that as I meditated upon this theme, realized that we don't have diversity and inclusion out here until I have it within me about myself. Can I accept everything about myself? Can I include it all? And so that's why I love the reading that we had this morning of, we have a spirituality of joy and tragedy. Because have you noticed life? I mean, most of you have been around for enough time to realize that life doesn't spend every single second being happy, happy, joy, joy. And so, and we sometimes, religious science and New Thought in general gets slapped with the label of we're the happy, happy, joy, joy, teaching. And in fact, in the early days, if you weren't having a really good day, you didn't want to show up at church because there'd be somebody sitting there going, well, what in your consciousness is, having that experience or created that? And I remember probably 25 years ago walking into a Unity church, and I was deep in the midst of exploring my early childhood experiences and really finally facing them and dealing with them, which they have been running and sitting below the surface for a lot of my life. And I walked into the Unity Church, and there was this gentleman who was sitting outside with what I call a pasted-on smile. And he looked at me, and I was apparently not responding to that smile. And he looks at me and goes, "Smile, it's a beautiful day." And I looked at him and I said, "Blank you." I didn't say blank. I said, a word there. I've been working all my life to get to these feelings, and I'm not going to give them up for you. And walked on past him, and he kind of sat there with this kind of, deer in the headlights look. And when we get genuine, when we get authentic, we understand that life is, and our spirituality is, this joy and this tragedy simultaneously. Simultaneously. That's what's going on. We have access to both and more. So we're going to work, I'm working today and for part of this month, and I think Mary's going to work with us also next week, is this wonderful book called The Spirituality of Imperfection by Ernest Kurtz and Catherine Ketchum. And it's a deep book that allows us to look at, it doesn't have to be this way or that way, it is all of this. A rabbi said, everyone must have two pockets so that he can reach into one or the other according to his needs. In his right pocket are to be the words, "For my sake the world was created." And in his left, "I am earth and ashes." For my sake the world was created. And when I get too big in that, I am just earth and ashes. I'm just dust. It keeps us in perspective because we do this dance of being these fabulous, infinite spiritual beings, having spiritual experiences here in human form. And so we get this dance of we are at once infinite and finite. We are infinite and we are finite. We are limited and unlimited at the same time. We are whole, perfect, and complete, and we're not at the same time. Breathe that in for a moment. We are not everything and we are not nothing. So true spirituality lies between these two extremes. It's where we confront our woundedness. It's where we take a look at the truth of who we are. There's a fabulous poem written by Francis Thompson in the late 1800s called The Hound of Heaven. In this case, the Hound of Heaven is God. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Ernest Holmes' epic poem, The Voice Celestial, except in The Voice Celestial, he's voicing the seeker, the farer, who's looking for God. And the Hound of Heaven, the poet is voicing the guy who's running away from God as far and as fast and as hard as he can. And I know I've been that person, and probably some of you have experienced that also. And then the dialogue that happens between God and that person. And late in the poem, God is saying to this person, all of which I took from you, I did take, not for your harm, but just that you might seek it in my arms. All of that I've taken from you, I took not to hurt you, not to harm you, but so that you might seek it in my arms. All which you as a child mistake for fancies lost, I have stored for you at home. So we live in a world in which the nature of God is fully expressed. It's all right here, right now. It's all expressed right here, right now. And it's all expressed in all the things in nature around us. But the problem is we get hypnotized by the things. And so we confuse the things with the essence of the divine. And eventually, sooner or later, those things must fall away so that we can see the essence behind it. When Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? It's not me, but the Father within that does the good," he's saying, don't look at me. I'm not the guy. I'm not it. Look past that. Look past the surface. Look past the stuff. Look past the circumstances and see that. When the Zen Buddhist says, don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon, it's see past the thing. And so we have to lose our everything we hang on to. Ernest Holmes, and I used this quote just last week, but says, spirit is a fluent force. It is forever taking form and forever deserting the form it has taken. It is forever taking form and deserting the form it has taken. Because the forms are just expressions of the essence. See, right now I'm going through that with relationship, right? Some of you know that Cynthia and I have ended our relationship as it has been, our structure of relationship as it has been. But the love, the essence of love, the infinite love remains, right? We're both still completely immersed in that infinite love. The form changes. One of our congregants made the comment, what a beautiful flower you both held for a while. What a beautiful flower you both held for a while. My response was, yes, it was. And like all flowers, it blooms and it dies. But the essence of flowering of the universe continues on and continues to create more and more flowering. The essence of love continues on and continues to make more loving. The essence of joy continues on and on. But if I'm attached to this flower is my source, okay, I have to let go of it because no form stays. No form stays. So that is where we get to do this dance. Perfection is an intellectual construct that we make up. And we all have different ideas of what perfection is, right? I know we do. We all have different ideas of what perfection is. But they're all made up. And when we try to pursue our idea of perfection and hold that, it makes us rigid. We get stuck. It's one of the things I love about this teaching is because we are not a dogmatic, this is the perfect way to do it teaching. Sometimes we get a little attached to certain processes, but the processes are just simply to take us to the direct experience of the divine, which is beyond the processes. It's the direct experience of the divine that we're here for, and then allowing that to be embodied in our lives as best as we can. And so when we don't get rigid, we have a greater experience of freedom, which is the universe's idea of its highest and greatest expression is freedom. So what happens if we're not perfect? What happens if we don't do it right? Do we cast out into the outer darkness where there's the weeping and the wailing of gnashing of teeth? Jesus was always yanking the chain of the Pharisees and the scribes because they were the ones who had the idea of this is perfect, you're supposed to do it this way. And he's forever yanking their chain and having a good time doing it too. Okay? If you read between the lines of the Bible, it's kind of like this, take a stick and poke it in every once in a while whenever they kind of come and try and poke the stick in his face. He turns it around. Years ago, actually decades ago, I was hiking up Mount Baldy, which is a 10,000-foot peak in Southern California in the San Gabriels. And I decided to go up there, and I went with my girlfriend at the time, who was not in the physical shape that I was in, and we had agreed that we would go up for as far as she wanted to go, and then she had brought a book with her to sit down by the stream and read the book while I finished off hiking up Mount Baldy. And so I went up, and the hike up Mount Baldy is a hike. It's not a true mountain climb. There's a little bit of scramble right at the end, but there's trail the whole way up, okay? So I went up, got to the top. On the way up, I had stopped in. The Sierra Club has a little cabin that's part way up the trail, and I poked my head into that just, kind of, I don't know why I just did, and found a couple who was running it that particular weekend was a couple that I knew from the camera committee, which I belonged to. And so, got to say hi, and we connected for a few minutes, and then I headed on up the trail. And on the way back down, I'm coming back down, and I'm thinking about, I've maybe taken a little too long. My girlfriend, worrying about my girlfriend way back down the trail by the stream, and all of a sudden I realized I hadn't seen anybody on the trail for a long time. And while it wasn't a highway trail, it was a trail that had enough people on it that you saw somebody every couple of minutes. And I suddenly realized that I and the trail had parted company. That dang trail, it moved. We've all had that experience, right, of being on the path. We know we're on the path, only to suddenly find out we're not on the path. We're not on the path we thought we were on. And so there I was, probably at about the 8,000 foot level, and this is a fairly steep, part of it, somewhere off in the boonies, trying to figure out where the trail was. So I worked my way back up. I decided to try and backtrack. Couldn't find it. I'm going back down the mountain, back up the mountain, back down the mountain, and thank God I was in good shape, because we're talking, again, 8,000 feet. The air is a little thin, probably better than the pollution down at the bottom of the base, but still, it was pretty thin. So for about an hour and a half, I did this. I eventually went down and said, okay, well, I know there's a stream that runs by the cabin. I saw the stream, decided to follow the stream, and suddenly realized I was following the wrong stream in the wrong canyon. Okay, so come back out of that canyon, and finally, eventually, after probably about 2 hours of this, I finally reconnected with, and I could see up above me some people walking by. I went, oh, thank God, it's the trail. So I got back on that trail. I have never been so happy to see a trail in my life, right? And I got partway back down the trail, and I'm sitting there now, it's starting to, approaching a little bit of duskiness, and I'm sitting there going, oh, my poor girlfriend must be, beside herself with that. And so the way the trail runs is it kind of comes around this corner, and you can see the hut, the Sierra Club hut on the other side, but you have to go kind of back into where the stream comes through and back around this way. And so it was probably a good half mile before that. I'm coming around down this part, and here comes my girlfriend running up the trail towards me. And first of all, I was totally impressed that she had gotten up that far, because she had never intended to, and I never thought she could. So I was never so happy to see a girlfriend as I was at that moment. And so we got to the cabin and checked in, and they said, why don't you guys just stay here for the night? It was Saturday night, next day was Sunday, we had no plans. Stay here for the night. We got extra sleeping bags, we got extra food. You're welcome to just hang out here. And by the way, we have some people who are coming up tomorrow who are a chamber orchestra, and they're going to give a little 5-person chamber orchestra concert out here in the meadow. Stay for that. And so we did. And we had this beautiful, magical weekend, all because I got lost. All because things didn't work out as I had planned them. Okay? All because I wasn't perfect. Now, was that perfect or wasn't it perfect? See, none of that joy would have happened if I had done it right, if I had followed the path. Kurt says the spirituality of imperfection begins with the recognition that trying to be perfect is the most tragic human mistake. Trying to be perfect is our most tragic human mistake. The universe constantly invites us to look past our ideas of perfection and see its idea of perfection. There's that old saying, make God laugh, tell her your plans. Okay? See its idea. And the thing is that I've found is it's not always easy to see Spirit's idea of perfection up front. See, when I was in there trying to find my way back to the trail and running up and down this, couple thousand feet of elevation gain and loss and trying to figure out what the heck's going on, I wasn't seeing the perfection. I wasn't sitting there going, this too is the perfection of Spirit. Despite the fact that I was a good Zen Buddhist at the time, I still wasn't seeing the perfection of Spirit in that experience. I was seeing my imperfection, my stupidity for getting off the track, because I had this self-image that I'm a good trail finder. Okay? I know I am. And I had to blow that one up. Only as I looked back could I see the perfection of what was going on. So this week, what I want to invite us to do is 3 things. The first one is become aware of where we hold tightly to the idea of perfection. What is my idea of perfection that I hold tightly to? It has to be this way. It has to be this way. Just before I walked out the door this morning, Cynthia had the TV on, and it was Face the Nation, and there was a person there who was from the current administration who was saying, American ideals are better than all the ideals of all the other countries. And I went, wow. First of all, you might want to take that Carnegie course about winning friends and influencing people. But each country has its own ideals that are perfect for that country. Can we include all of us? Can we look at that and hold all of it as sacred rather than, I'm better than you are. My way is better than your way. And I've gotten caught up in my way is better than your way, and probably we all have gotten caught up in my way is better than your way. So I'm not throwing rocks at that particular person, but it's a consciousness, it's a mentality, and we all have it. And so this week, take a look, where am I holding on to this, I'm better, my way is superior, this is what perfection is. And when we do the dance of what perfection is, we either are feeling superior because we're being perfect, or we're feeling like worms to the dust because we're not there, and we feel terrible about ourselves. And both of them because we're holding this idea of what perfection is and trying to compare ourselves to it, instead of looking and saying, what is the perfection of who I am, as I am, right here, right now, including being off the path and lost. Can I see that? Can I hold myself in love and recognize the perfection, which is a gentler perfection and a different kind of perfection than that? If not, we can be like the scholar who meets the Zen Buddhist and asks him to talk about, teach him about Zen, and the scholar goes on and talks about all that he knows, and the Zen monk finally is pouring his cup of tea for the gentleman, and when the cup is full, keeps on pouring the tea until it's running out over the cup, down off the table, and he says, your mind is like this. It is so full that it takes nothing new. Okay? So if we're stuck on our idea of perfection, our mind is closed and we can take in nothing new. And Spirit is constantly saying, no, my child, there is more. Take it in. But you have to empty out what is already here to let more in. So that's our first place this week, our first practice. Become aware of where we tightly hold on to the idea of perfection. Our second practice is to look for the paradox. I was having a wonderful conversation with somebody last week in our Quick Start class. Is God this or is God that? And the answer is yes. If we're not talking paradox, we're not talking God. God is paradox. God is this and that simultaneously and more than that. And guess what? Since you and I are God, we are this and we are that simultaneously and more than that. That is who we are. Can we accept that? Can we see the paradox? Can we look for the paradox? The space between right and wrong that includes both. The space between our idea of right and wrong that includes both. Because this is where Spirit lives, and Spirit is always bigger than our idea of what's right or what's wrong or what's this or what's that. Can we look at both of those? And then finally, this week, I invite you to do something crazy. I invite you to be willing to play the holy fool. See, the holy fool in Zen and in Russian Orthodox Christianity, the holy fool is revered because it's a paradox. It's the fool who's also deeply sacred. There's a man who goes to a rabbi and says, Rabbi, all my friends tell me I'm a fool. He says, but I know I'm not a fool. And the rabbi says to him, well, are you letting your friends tell you what you are? Because if you are, then you are a fool. Don't let the universe, don't let the world, don't let your people, the circumstances around you tell you what you are. Practice being the holy fool. Be playful. Be willing to be wrong. Be willing to be wrong. I love the phrase, and I can't remember who originally started it, but anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Everything we have ever learned, we started off by doing badly. Everything. I didn't get up and walk right out of the womb or on my first attempt. I doubt that you did either. Anything we do is worth doing badly. Every musician, I just see our bass player from our group from the second service walk in, and I'm willing to bet the first time that bass player picked up a bass, it didn't sound as good as it sounds today. Everything worth doing is worth doing badly. And then allowing that to happen. Are we willing to be foolish? Are we willing to play the fool? I was originally going to close with one of my absolutely favorite Rumi poems, and I am going to close with that. But this morning, a Richard Rohr meditation came across my thing, and I'm going to also quote from that. So, my favorite Rumi quote: "Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense." So I invite you to lay in that field. But I also want to read this beautiful quote from Richard Rohr. He says, "The gift of contemplative prayer is not a way of thinking or speaking. It is much more a way of not thinking and not talking. It is more about naked presence. It finally moves beyond words into silence, into awareness of the mystery that is too deep for words. Our awareness of God's presence is outside of and beyond our power to express in any words or conceive in any thought." And what that reminds me of, there's a famous Taoist story of Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching writes, "He who knows does not speak, and he who speaks does not know," which as a minister is always a real bugaboo. Because I don't think I can quite get up here and just go. Now, some people actually might prefer that I do that for 20 minutes, but. And so there's a story of students are asking a Taoist scholar, so how do we deal with that? What does this mean? How do I handle that? And the Taoist scholar says, "Do you know what the smell of a rose is?" And they go, "Yes." He says, "Put it into words." And they're all silent. We all know what the essence is, and we can't speak about it. Our awareness of God's presence is outside of and beyond our power to express in any words or conceive in any thought. While our prayer of words is an attempt to express to ourselves our relationship with the great mystery, the prayer of silence is not so much to express, but to experience that mutuality. We acknowledge and rejoice that we are the beloved. We sit and wait until we know this truth in our body and in our memory. Silence leads to resting in the beloved's arms, reveling in the quiet that follows making love. There is simply an awareness that it is very good, as it says in our creation story. So for our closing prayer today, I'm going to do the first 2 steps of our 5-step treatment. And I sometimes love to do this at home for myself. Just the first 2 steps. God is. I am that. God is. I am that. God is. I am that. God is. I am. And so it is.